Auden Group. Auden is like it came late. It came late if we compare it with the other movements. So it came a bit late. The British and Irish writers of 1930s and 1940s. So this was another group like the Rhymers Club, which was a group of the people which are who are known as decadents, and in the same with this Auden Group. So this was popular during 1930s and 1940s, and there were the writers, these were the writers, those who were from Britain and Ireland. These themes different from Yeats. They were not having the similar kind of themes, and they didn't talk about Ireland, the tradition and the history of Ireland. They didn't talk about that thing which we find in the works of Yeats. So leading poet was Auden. Other poets, this Louis MacNeice, Cecil de Louis, Stephen Spender, and others also, Christopher Isherwood and others also. But these four, W.H. Auden, Louis MacNeice, Cecil de Louis, and then this Stephen Spender. These are the prominent poets, and W.H. Auden, he was the leading poet. And these are also known as Oxford poets because most of them were either the students of Oxford or they were the of Cambridge. Then anthologies, they produced two anthologies. One was New Signatures and one was New Country. One was written in 1932 and the other one was written in 1935. And they talked about political and social changes. This group is also known as Max Ponde Roy Max Ponde. Now, why it is known as Max Ponde? Roy Campbell was the one who used this term for this group, and in his Talking Bronco, he used this term in 1946. Now, why he used this Max Ponde for this group? Because he took this Max Ponde, Mac from Louis MacNeice's name, SP from Stephen Spender, and then from Auden's he took AUN, and then AUN, and then Day from Cecil Day. So this way, this Max Ponde, this term became popular, and Roy Campbell, he used it. The important thing is this one: if you are preparing yourself for net examinations, so this is very important that you need to know this term Max Ponde, and it was used by Roy Campbell in this Talking Bronco. So some members were homosexual. Some of these members were homosexual. Then they were like-minded and 30s poets. These are also known as 30s poets. Okay, and then left-wing poets. They're also the left-wing poets supporting a particular kind of political ideology. Then there are features of this poetry. They were known as 30s poets, centered around Auden and Isherwood, and then represented a new, more experimental literary style. They represented a new, more experimental style of literary style, and never worked together as a whole. So this is not a kind of group which the kind of the which we see in Rhymers Club, that they used to meet and they used to recite poems to each other. This was not that kind of group. They never worked together as a whole, were connected together mainly by their similar ages. Term continues to be used to categorize a wide range of cultural output from the 1930s, including literature, theater, music, and art. So this remained very popular, and this remained popular in literature, theater, music, and art also. It's also sometimes referred to as the 1930s poets, or the Oxford poets, who represent a new, more experimental literary style. This we have discussed, that they were also known as the 1930s poets, or they are also known as Oxford poets. All the poets knew one another. Most had been educated at either Oxford or Cambridge. So all sharing vaguely left-wing viewpoints. All of them were having left-wing viewpoints, and the writers associated with the grouping: W.H. Auden, MacNeice, then Cecil de Lewis, and then Stephen Spender, Christopher Isherwood, never gathered together in the same room, nor shared any coherent poetic or literary values. So they were together because of their left-wing viewpoints. So that is the common feature which they were having. And the second common feature was this one, that they were educated either from Oxford or either from Oxford or from Cambridge. And then they, all the poets, they knew one another, and then all of them were belonged to 1930s. So then Christopher Eicher would never gather together in the same room, but they never gathered together, and they didn't share their views too much, like as we have seen in the Rhymers Club. Rather, the poets connected individually, particularly through Auden, who collaborated several times with both Isherwood and McNeice. So they were connected mainly through Auden. So Auden, we can consider them that he was the leader of this group, and he used to have collaboration with almost all of them. So then we have the poets during this period were highly influenced by the philosophy of Karl Marx and his followers, were sensitively alive to contemporary social and political problems, and their poetry reflects their awareness of the world lying around them. So they were quite aware of the world around them, and they were having their own political views, and they were inspired by the philosophy of Karl Marx. They wanted to bring about certain changes, certain social and political. They were sensitive towards social and political problems, so shaped by their acute awareness of the social reality, which enabled them to plunge into hectic political activities, were deeply influenced by the contemporary happenings like the Spanish War, the First World War, the economic depression of 1929, mass starvation, unemployment, the general strike in Britain in 1926, the powers of fascist and Nazi dictators, and Second World War. So these were the people, those who were highly influenced and highly aware of all the things which were happening around them, everything which was happening around them, the social reality, the political things which were happening, and that's why they were connected, and they were having their own political point of view, react to the social, political, and economic conditions of their times, reflected the mood of the times in their poetry. Then Auden, Spender, and Lewis are recognized as major social poets of 1930s, and these are the major social poets, and including McNeice also. So these are the important poets of this particular of this Auden group. The characteristics wrote poems which were a clear reaction against the reigning stylishly exotic poems, made nature use of imagery taken from contemporary life, and propagated some sort of personally interpreted ideal of communism for remedying the ills of man's life. So they suggested something, that how man can come out of the ills of the things, ills of the society, or ills of everything whatever the man was facing at that time. Like Auden has suggested that love is the word that can cure the problems of human life. So this kind of, they were suggesting their own remedies. The poetry of Oxford poets is intellectual. This is an intellectual poetry, took interest in political and economic affairs. So these were not like expressionists or futurists, those who were just thinking about the human mind, and they were not thinking about, they didn't want to those who didn't want to deal with the reality. So these were the poets, those who actually wanted to deal with the reality, and the political and the economic reality, as well as the social reality. Thought that Marxism was the only source to end all the evils of the man's life. So for them, they used to believe in Marxism, that can end everything whatever was happening because of Nazism, and because of that, those Nazis and Nazism and fascism. So, and then they abominated bourgeoisie society, their values and everything. They didn't like those values, those fake values, and which are not having any reality, which are not having any intrinsic reality. Affirmed their faith in revolution. According to them, revolution would bring about a new order and new values. The new world order would be communistic, would be communistic, and they wanted to have a communistic world around them. Show the influence of Freud. Their poetical technique was greatly influenced by Imagism and French symbolism. They were influenced by Imagists and symbolists also. Influenced a generation as much by their politics as by their poetry. Entered history collectively as Auden and company. So they entered in history in this way, with this phrase, and this the contribution of the Oxford is memorable. They changed the current of poetry and added new things to it. So they changed whatever was happening at that time and they added new things. So this is all about all the things which like I hope that things would be clear to you, because there were so many things to discuss and so many topics to discuss and so many schools, and but I hope the things would be clear to you, because that was the thing. The main thing is this one, that from 1901 to 1940s or 50s, like in this modern age, so many things changed from the Victorian era or from romantic period, that all these things, the reason and all these things, these changed, the political upheavals, the social changes, the economic changes, all these things, these actually affected the writing style of the writers, and they started talking about the things in their own ways, and they changed the whole writing style, and the whole scenario rather that got changed. So this is all about this. Thank you. I don't know whether how much of this you have got, but I tried to explain it.
First of all, hearty congratulations on our behalf for very systematically covering each topic, each point with the sub-points that we had requested,
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
which we feel will justify the topics that has been assigned. If the sub-points somehow are not covered, the basic information about a topic can easily be got from different sources. But hearty congratulations to you, ma'am, and the effort that you have put. We are really so happy that you have paid and focused very clear attention on the sub points which mattered a lot. So thank you on behalf of team DAATH VOYAGE for such
Thank you,
a
sir.
lucid and exhaustive and informative and concrete presentation, ma'am. So somebody writes it was a fantabulous presentation. So you can see the
Okay.
chat box. There are plethora of messages. Since we have crossed over time, we will just take few questions. The rest
Okay, sir.
we will mail you.
All
And you
right, sir.
please, whenever you have free time, although I don't think you will have time now, but still you somehow manage time. I did not know that you commute so long every day.
Yeah.
It's very hectic, very hectic. I can understand. So if you give some time, ma'am, I will just put forward few questions of the
Yes, sir.
participants.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you all can hear the crackling noise of the cloud bursts here that's taking place. Generally in Guwahati, we have uh, rainy season starting from April, and
Okay.
it continues till September.
All
So we
right.
have had rains in the last 3 days, and those rains were like spontaneous. It was
Mm.
throughout night. And our rain god here is very kind. Mostly it rains at night. The first
And this,
question, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You were saying something.
so I was just talking about the weather conditions here in Ambala and in Chandigarh. So it's very hot these
Yeah.
days. Like it's not like the like I would like love to come Guwahati sometimes.
I
Like
told you, you
I've
do
ever
something
never.
and we come and we do something. We have a
Exactly.
beautiful campus.
Okay.
We have a campus of 500 acres.
All right.
And as you enter, you will have left and right, you will have tea gardens
Okay.
to welcome you. So it's a beautiful campus. You can just see the website.
Mm-hmm.
And when we teach really the romantic age and all those stuff,
So
we
you
teach
might
it
be
from a
having
classroom where you
some.
have mountains all around. So it's a great feeling. I can very well understand because I have stayed in Delhi NCR and so-called concrete jungles. So
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy my campus, the ambience of the campus that I am in. Yes, ma'am. The first question is, Pound didn't like the writing style of Amy Lowell and called the Imagist movement as Imagism, Amygism. And she even went on to replace him and become the leader of the same movement. However, Pound changed the same name, image to vortex, and imagism to vorticism. So the question is, how is vorticism different from imagism? Does it stem from the same movement or is it something different from it? And do you have any information about the issue of Pound and Amy Lowell? Over to you.
Actually, this vorticism that actually emerged from imagism. There is, I don't think that there is any difference, but I can say that that might be the like whatever Ezra Pound like he wanted to take over this movement, and that's why he came up with this new idea, vorticism, and that's why he changed it. Actually, Emmy Lowell is considered as the pioneer of this imagism, and that's why he wanted to take over this movement. That's why he changed it to vorticism. Though there is not much difference.
Thank you, ma'am. How do we distinguish a surrealist poem from a non-surrealist poem? Because some of the poetry written by surrealists are realistic. So can realistic poetry also be called a surrealist?
Uh, I don't think surrealist poetry has much relation with realism. They are actually talking about something which is happening in the mind of the person or mind of the protagonist. So realistic, we will not be able to call it.
Thank you, ma'am. The Wasteland of T.S. Eliot is considered more of symbolism or surrealism or expressionism.
Sir, Malay, what I feel that most of these movements, these are related, interrelated. Like there is a common thing among in all of them. Like all of them, these are like expressing the poet's concern towards the protagonist and towards the age also. Like they wanted to come out of whatever was happening around them. So for that they wanted to talk about, they wanted to the kind of degeneration which they were facing, and the wasteland is also depicting the same thing, whatever happened during the wars and the thing which happened, and that's why I don't think that there is much more difference in, and we cannot put this wasteland in any of these categories. Rather, if we try to find out the elements of all these categories, we'll be able to find out the elements of all these schools in wasteland.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question. Though Frank Kafka was an expressionist, can we take his work Metamorphosis to be a surrealistic work as the protagonist changes into a giant insect?
So for that, I'll have to read the work. I haven't read that work. Uh, you can share this question with me, and I'll try to answer it later on. Sir, you are not audible.
Audible, and if I'm audible also, I don't know how much I'll be audible to you because here the huge downpour has started.
Okay.
We take the last question of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate so many participants are appreciating the fact that you have covered so many topics with all the subtopics. The subtopics are very, very important, and we always look forward from our resource person the subtopics as well. So we are so happy that today everything has been covered. Uh, we take the last question. Auden moved over to the US later, that we all know. So did he abandon his left leanings in the democratic setup there? Was there a disillusionment?
There was a disillusionment that appears to be, because when he moved there, he left those left leanings. So there was a disillusionment with everything, whatever happened at that time. So earlier, all these poets, they were like towards this, they were speaking in favor of these left wings, and then this Auden he left that thing.
Ma'am, with that, we come to the end of this engaging and mesmerizing and informative and concrete session.
Sir,
I'm
I
sure
can
our
see the chat
participants
box, and
and
I'm highly thankful to the participants for
all
the
of them have
patient
enjoyed.
listening. Yes.
We are highly honored and thankful to have you. And
And so most of them are like writing amazing
yeah,
thank you, ma'am,
yeah.
and
So
whatever.
you can very
So
well
thank you.
understand the kind of
Yes.
you really have put in a lot of effort, and that got testified today in the presentation. So on behalf of Team DAATH, thank you so much for
Thank you,
taking
sir.
our
Thank you.
lectures so seriously and for devoting so much of time and energy to make these lectures so enriching and fruitful to all our participants. Because ultimately it is the participants, if they are happy,
Yeah,
they feel
exactly.
that they get what they are, they are coming for every day.
Mm.
We are so happy with such feedbacks. We feel as if we are getting that feedback. So yeah, so thank you very much on behalf of Team DAATH. It's always an absolute honor and pleasure to have you, and looking forward to have you again in the near future. With
Okay,
that
sir.
hope and
Thank you.
belief, please do take very good care, and please wear, everybody, participants as well. In Guwahati today, it has been declared that if we don't wear mask, we have 1,000 rupees fine. So please wear masks, sanitize yourself, keep safe distance, so that we all can keep enjoying this literary extravaganza that takes place every evening. With that hope and belief, please do take care. Good night from Team DAATH, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank
Good
you
night,
very much,
participants.
and thank you all the participants. Thank you very much, sir. Okay.
Thank you so much. Please do take care. Good night.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good night. Good